Welcome everyone. My name is Sumesh Balakrishnan. I'm part of Enterprise Manager Product Management team. In this session, we will discuss how privileged access management solution providers like CyberArk, Hashicorp, and others are integrated with Enterprise Manager to securely retrieve passwords and how it protects against security breaches. Today, we will cover 3 key items to provide a comprehensive understanding of the topic. First, we will discuss the current security threat landscape and business challenges that organizations face. Second, we will provide a detailed overview of privileged access management. Finally, we will dive into the specifics of privileged access management integration solution and walk through the integration procedure with Enterprise Manager. Let's review the security challenges. Before we jump into the PAM discussion, let's look at some of the industry data related to the security breaches in the last year. Human elements continue to drive breaches. So last year, 82% of breaches involve the human element, which includes the use of stolen credentials, weak password, shared credentials, and privilege misuse. So people continue to play a very large role in security incidents and breaches. Also, stolen or compromised credentials are very costly. Today, credentials represent one of the most tried and true methods to gain access to an organization and are the favorite data types for bad actors because they are so useful for masquerading as legitimate users on the system. The next biggest thing is the ransomware is also the biggest concern for almost all customers. Last year, ransomware has continued its upward trend with an almost 13% increase. These attacks can be very costly and disruptive for organizations. Lastly, Zero Trust is a security approach that has gained a lot of traction recently, encouraging organizations to adopt a Zero Trust approach to security, which removes the assumption of trust from users and networks. And all this data is from Verizon DBIR report. Now let's look into some of the business challenges. In today's digital landscape, organizations face numerous security threats that can compromise their sensitive data and critical systems. Cyber attacks, insider threats, and data breaches have becoming increasingly sophisticated, targeting privileged accounts to gain unauthorized access. Also, the risk of insider attack, hybrid environments, and actors in the same network lead to easy password compromise, which in turn increasing the adoption of PAM across many organizations. PAM solutions help organizations to eliminate hard-coded credentials and allow highly sensitive passwords to be centrally stored, logged, and also managed within the vault. This unique approach enables organizations to comply with their internal and regulatory compliance requirements of periodic password rotations and monitor and audit privileged access across all systems and environments. So the third one is on the maintenance challenge. Password rotation policy makes it difficult for enterprise manager administrators to have a mechanism to retrieve password from PAM and update enterprise manager name credential in bulk on every password rotation. So ultimately, there is an increasing demand from customers looking for enterprise manager to work directly with PAM solutions like CyberArk, Centrify, such that EM can securely retrieve the credentials from PAM and use it for activities such as database patching, executing jobs in a manner that is compliant with the security and compliance policies. So let's review what is privileged access management is all about. So privileged access management consists of 4 important elements. So before that, let's review what is privileged access management is all about. It refers to a security practice of limiting access to critical resources and sensitive data and only to provide authorized users with necessary privileges. It involves a process of granting, monitoring, and revoking the rights based on user job responsibilities and needs. This also ensures the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of sensitive information while minimizing the risk. So PAM consists of 4 key elements. The first one is prepare. Here, the PAM administrator will discover and identify privileged accounts across multiple systems, infrastructure, application in the organization. The second is the protect. Here, the PAM administrator will set up the authentication requirements and credential management for privileged accounts. The third one is operate. Here, the PAM administrator will set up the authentication requirements, and once the authentication requirements are met, the end user will get the just-in-time access to the resource, either database or host. And the final thing is the monitor. Here, the PAM administrator will review the auditing alerts, monitor access, and report any suspicious security issues. So let's review the solution, which is the PAM integration with Enterprise Manager, and then we will look into the integration procedure with Enterprise Manager. So here we will review the goals for PAM integration with Enterprise Manager. The first one is extending the credential framework. The integration aims to extend the existing credential framework in Enterprise Manager to include PAM solutions as an external store for storing credentials. This allows organizations to leverage the security and management capabilities of PAM while abstracting the attributes within EM. Next is about the credential supply to the subsystems. The integration ensures that the credentials for database or host, whether it is stored in EM repository or in PAM store, can be supplied to the various subsystems in EM whenever required. Next is about the authorization. As PAM solutions are designed to provide secure access control, the integration with EM should support token-based authorization. This ensures that the authorized users or process can retrieve and use the credentials stored in the PAM system. Next, since there are multiple PAM providers in the market, EM should provide support the registration of PAM through scripts. These scripts enable the secure retrieval of credentials from the PAM system, allowing EM to interact with various PAM solutions. The next is about creating the data model. The integration requires a data model that allows the creation of mapping between the attributes of the credential fetched from the PAM system and the EM credential type. This mapping ensures that the retrieved credentials can be properly utilized within EM for different operations. Next is to allow to create or modify the name credentials. This integration enables end users to create a new PAM-based name credential in EM, which allows EM to retrieve the credential from an external PAM store. Additionally, users should be able to modify existing name credential to switch to PAM-based retrieval. And finally, the primary objective of PAM integration with EM is to enable end users to securely retrieve passwords from the PAM system for database or host. This ensures that activities such as executing jobs, patching databases through EM can be performed in a manner that is compliant with their organization's security and compliance policies. So here is the integration solution overview. In this, we have Enterprise Manager set up with OMS and repository. On the other side, we have PAM providers like CyberArk, Hashicorp, and others play as a crucial role in managing the password lifecycle for databases and hosts. And PAM tools ensure password rotation, maintain privilege access control, and enhance the security of these privileged accounts. So traditionally, all these name credentials are stored in EM in the repository database. However, with the integration of PAM solution, the credentials for database and host are now managed within the external PAM store. This shift to an external store improves the security and aligns with PAM best practices for privileged account management. So to retrieve the credential from PAM system, Enterprise Manager framework needs to interact with a new security provider, which is the PAM solution. To facilitate this interaction, customers are required to write an integration script that includes all the necessary PAM attributes. This script is then registered with EM, which establishes the connection between EM and the PAM solution. So when EM is required, the credential for database or host to perform any underlying workflow such as database, patching, or running a job, the credential framework comes into play. So when the credential framework interacts with the external PAM provider, leveraging the integration script that is registered with PAM attributes, the framework retrieves the password. The framework will retrieve the password specified for database or host from the PAM system securely. Once retrieved, the credential object containing the necessary credential is passed to the underlying workflow, enabling seamless execution of the given task. So this is at a high level, the solution we have for the PAM integration with Enterprise Manager. So at a high level, PAM integration with EM can be summarized in 3 simple steps. The first one is register. This step involves registering the PAM script provided by the customer within the Enterprise Manager credential framework. This registration enables Enterprise Manager to interact with PAM solution and retrieve credentials securely. The second one is the credential mapping. Here, a mapping is established between the attributes of the credential provider and the attributes of the credential type in Enterprise Manager. This mapping ensures that the retrieved credentials from the external PAM can be correctly associated with the appropriate Enterprise Manager credential type. The third one is about creating or modifying an existing name credential. This is the final step which allows the users to create a new name credentials or modify an existing one. The purpose of creating or modifying the name credential is to configure EM to retrieve the credential from an external store. This ensures that Enterprise Manager can effectively retrieve the password from the PAM store and perform tasks such as executing jobs or patching databases in a secure and compliant manner. So as the first step, let's review how to register the PAM integration script with Enterprise Manager. But before diving into the registration step, there are some prerequisite checks that needs to be taken care for successful registration of the PAM script with Enterprise Manager. One crucial prerequisite check is defining the administrator's roles and their responsibilities. In this context, we have 2 key administrators involved in this process. The first one is the EM administrator. So the EM administrator is responsible for configuring the PAM script within Enterprise Manager. Their role involves understanding the integration requirements, registering the PAM script, and performing the necessary configuration within EM. The second persona here is the PAM security admin. The PAM security admin possesses in-depth knowledge of the PAM solutions, its capabilities, and the parameters required for successful script execution. The PAM security admin collaborates with the Enterprise Manager administrator, guiding them in building the integration script and providing the necessary parameters required for the script execution. They play a critical role in ensuring the security and compliance aspects of the PAM integration. So let's review some of the prerequisite checks before getting into the registration steps. So the PAM integration with Enterprise Manager was released as part of release update 14. So at a minimum, you need to have release update 14 or later to use this feature. Now let's see the requirements for coming up with the PAM integration script. The first one is shell script or languages like Perl can be used to develop the integration script. If you plan to use languages like Java, then you may need to create a wrapper script and make use of the REST APIs or command line tool feature provided by the specific PAM provider in your integration script. These features enables seamless interaction with PAM solution, facilitating the retrieval of credentials and other necessary operations. The credentials stored in PAM system will be referred using a unique identifier called credential key. Ensure that the integration script includes the parameter for the credential key, as it is used to retrieve the corresponding credentials from the PAM system. It is also important to implement error handling and exception capturing within the custom script. Any error occurs during the execution of the script should be properly captured and formatted within the standard error output. These error messages can be utilized by Enterprise Manager to capture and display the relevant error information during the retrieval of credential in case if Enterprise Manager is not able to connect to the PAM system itself. So these are some of the requirements before you write the integration script. So here we will see how to register the PAM integration script with Enterprise Manager. So the customer need to develop the integration script based on their organization's PAM provider. The script should be designed to access the PAM script using APIs or CLI methods. The primary purpose of the script is to fetch the credential for database or host from the PAM during runtime. These scripts should utilize the appropriate APIs or CLIs provided by the PAM solution to interact with the PAM system. Once the script is developed, it needs to be registered in Enterprise Manager. So we have a new EMCLI verb, which is called EMCLI config cred provider, which will be used to register the PAM integration script with Enterprise Manager. So there are some key parameters that are available to this new EMCLI command, such as the provider name, the provider type, the params, and also the hyphen key, which indicates the credential key, and then the input file where you will be passing the integration script location. So let's go through one example. So here, I've taken an example of CyberArk as a sample registration script, which we will register using EMCLI. In the EMCLI command, the provider name I have used is CyberArk. This can be any name depending upon your PAM provider in your environment. And then there is a parameter called provider type. Here we are calling as script provider. This specifies that we are going to use script to retrieve the credentials from PAM system. And then we have hyphen params option. We have specified how the script will be executed and command used to execute the script here, which is the shell script. The arguments to the script are credential key and auth token. Here, the custom script I've placed in certain location that I'll be passing as an input file parameter. In reference parameter, I have defined the mapping, which is auth token to the OMS property. The OMS property can be set using the EMCTL set property to indicate the authentication token. And this is a sample output. When I run EMCLI config cred provider, you can see that the CyberArk script is registered in Enterprise Manager. So the next is about how to create the credential mapping. So after the successful registration and execution of the integration script, the script will return the output containing the credential required by Enterprise Manager for further operations. The output may include the username and password, or it could return only the password depending on the specific implementation. To ensure that EM correctly interprets and processes the script output, we may need to map the attributes received from the credential provider to the attributes required by the credential type. So Enterprise Manager understands and processes scripts output to map to credential framework object. So here we have two new EMCLI verbs, or rather one verb to store the credential for database, and the another EMCLI store cred mapping for host. So here I have highlighted some of the key parameters, such as the mapper name, the mapper description, and here you can specify the authenticating target type. It could be host or it could be database. And depending on that, the attributes also gets varied. So let's take an example and see how we can run the store credential mapping for database as well as for the host credential type. So here, if you can see, after the successful execution of the script will return the output, say example, username and password. So it might be returning with username as Oracle and password as, say, welcome. So the script output should be mapped with the credential type. And then we have to map the parameters. So here in the example, I have put the authenticating target type as database. And also I have defined the attributes like the database username and password. Along with that, I've also mapped the database role. So this is just an example command for database. And below you can see an example command for the host target type. So now that we have seen how to create the credential mapping for database target type or host target type, now let's look into the final step on how to create or modify an existing name credential in Enterprise Manager. So this is the final step in the whole of the integration, PAM integration with EM. So to create or modify an existing name credential, so we have to make sure we specify this hyphen alternate cred store to indicate Enterprise Manager that whenever it has to fetch the name credential, using this hyphen alternate cred store, Enterprise Manager understands that it should go and fetch the respective credential for a database or host from an external PAM store instead of fetching it from the EM repository. So that's why this hyphen alternate cred store plays an important role when you create a name credential or when you modify an existing name credential. So that's why I've highlighted in the EMCLA create name credential to indicate that this credential will be fetched from an external PAM store instead of fetching it from the repository. And also there are other parameters such as the credential key and also the credential mapping. So you can go and if you have already created the name credential which are in use and now those credentials are now moved to PAM, you can go and modify the name credential and specify this alternate cred store. Along with that, specify the cred provider, the credential key, and also specify the credential mapping. So with this, you will be able to seamlessly, whenever you require a name credential, EM will be able to seamlessly retrieve the credential from an external store, and it should be able to use it in the underlying workflows. So this completes the integration procedure. So like I said, it takes only the 3 simple steps to integrate with Enterprise Manager. So the first step is about register. The second step is about creating the credential mapping. And then the third step is to create or edit an existing name credential. So let's take an example of creating a name credential, which is a PAM-based name credential. So here you can see, like I said, the important parameters are the alternate cred storage. Along with that, you also need to pass the cred key, cred mapping. And here I have also provided the attributes to define the database role. So once you create using EMCLI, you can very well go and verify the same from the EM console. And this is just a representation to show the name credential got created, and you can use the UI to view its properties and definitions. So finally, we have come to the end of the PAM integration with Enterprise Manager. So here we will see what are all the benefits that it is going to bring it for you in terms of improving your security posture. The first one is about the extensible model. So simplified credential framework that allows PAM solution to seamlessly integrate with EM to securely fetch the credential from an external store. And then it also does the risk reduction. So reduces security breaches and address regulatory and compliance requirements. And it also protects against privilege misuse. And the third is about auditing and reporting. Monitoring privilege access like activities, detect suspicious behavior, and report any user activities. And finally, it also increases the efficiency of the system. By controlling the number of privilege accounts and streamlining the process, PAM integration with Enterprise Manager helps organizations become more efficient, and it improves their overall security posture. And these are all some of the resources where we have the documentations available, and we also have published a blog on how to integrate PAM with Enterprise Manager. And we also have some Moss notes around how to integrate, and also some sample scripts, how you can build your integration script with so that you can register that with Enterprise Manager. So thank you all for joining today.